You are seeing two images of India Gate. Tell me which image is much more visualizing in nature, whether it is the first one or the second one. Well, you are right. You are thinking right. It is the second image. But I ask you a question. Why the second image? Well, you may see that there is a clear sky, and clear sky comes from which thing? The less air pollution, the less particulate matter. So, in the first picture, you are seeing the less visible atmosphere of Delhi. And why? Because the particulate matter in the present time, specifically after the start of winter, is much more higher, and higher in terms of the dense air which surrounds the city of Delhi. And not only this, it is not only the problem of the Delhi, okay, it is the problem of other cities as well. But the problem gets highlighted in Delhi because it's a capital region, okay, national capital, and the media do highlight this. But the problem is of great concern. So, what we need to do, what actions should be needed, okay, because every time you can see that the news about the pollution crisis do comes, but when the winter goes off, the issue of pollution also goes off. So there is a need that proper initiative needs to be taken, otherwise it will cause loss to the people, loss to the health of the people, because it directly infects our life expectancy. And currently, Delhi is facing this crisis, the crisis due to the gas chamber, okay, due to the air pollutants. And pollutants are coming from which source? The construction source, the vehicular pollution, or the stubble burning from the neighboring states like Punjab, Haryana, or the Uttar Pradesh. So that means the solution needs holistic improvement. Okay, but we see in the news that only blame games between the party, between the state. Okay, but no long term solution. This is a problem which we see every year. But do we find solution? Do we find long term solution? No. Okay, so in today's article, we are going to discuss on all these aspects, the problem, the solution, and what can be done. And hello and welcome you all. Welcome to the Bajirao IAS Academy. Today is 6th November, and we are going to discuss four important articles. And the first article is related to the context which we had already provided to you. Okay, and how can ensure better life to our citizens, to the civilians. Okay, the second article is related to greater compliance needed and CAQM. CAQM is a statutory body, okay, and that are targeted to improve the air quality in the Delhi NCR region by implementing the graded response action plan. So we will be getting into detail. And the third article is related to India-Qatar relation and the issue of death sentence. And the fourth article is related to Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Okay, and here we will be talking about the various details of this scheme and what is the issue involved here. So be with us. If you are liking our initiative, please do like, share, subscribe, and also share with your friend circle. But before that, we have a rapid warm-up session and the question which do ask on the daily basis from the previous year paper, and solving these questions will also enhance your thinking power and also make sure that which topic are very important for the prelims examination, and it can also only be highlighted if you follow the previous year paper. Why? Because the syllabus for the prelims in the UPSC has not been much more elaborated. So you have to decode indirectly, and the way to decode indirectly from the previous year paper. Okay. So the question is, under the Indian Constitution, The concentration of wealth violates option A, right to equality, option B, DPSP, option C, right to freedom, and option D, concept of welfare state. And when this question was given into the prelims paper, many students, even the teacher, got confused among the two options. Okay, and you have to tell me that which two options are much more nearer and was confusing in nature. If you have read this question before, you can definitely tell me the tell me the answers as well and the confusing options. Okay, so let's start with our discussion, and the first article is related to the GS paper 1. You can also link with the GS paper 3. Okay, so when we talk about the pollution scenario, see, you are seeing that the crisis of pollution is much more visible nowadays, specifically in Delhi, and we have much more coverage of news of media. Okay, and recently, World Cities Day was celebrated on 31st of October with the theme Financing Sustainable Urban Future for All. But when we talk about sustainable urban future, the sustainability do comes with controlling air pollution, whether it is or not. Yes, because sustainability ensures long-term viability, and long-term viability ensures that any crisis with the urban cities are facing that needs to be dealt with, and the air pollution is one of the biggest crises, so it needs to be dealt with. That's why there is a need to have a holistic developmental strategy shift that we currently focusing on. And when we talk about the impact of pollution, the impact of pollution, it is on our health, it is on our climate, it is on our energy security and all of that, food security. Okay, can you link the impact of climate change on the food security? Can you link the impact of the air pollution on the food quality, the food security? If yes, then please do comment in the chat box. Okay, and in terms of health, you can understand that on average at the global level, it lowers about 10% of our life expectancy. And in case of the cities which are much more polluted, like the Delhi, okay, so the reduction of life expectancy is much more higher, about 12 years. That means if you are living in Delhi, you will be reduced to 12 years from your total age. Okay, and when we talk about the polluted cities, so from the top most polluted cities of the world, 39 cities are in India itself. Okay, that means the crisis is much more worse. So do not talk about Delhi only. The crisis in Delhi much more higher, but we need to tackle it holistically so that the other cities should also ensure that the pollution crisis should be eliminated from their city. Okay, so that is the point, and you should quote the report here for your main sensor, because these reports and the facts associated with these will give you extra marks. Okay, and when we talk about pollution, we have already talked on the healthcare, on the climate, on the water, on the energy, and the food. Okay. And when we talk about the pollution crisis, so we talk about the map of India. Tell me, the pollution crisis is way much more visible, whether it is in the coastal states of the city or whether it is in the northern Indian plains like the Delhi and other capital cities like the Patna, okay, Lucknow, all of these. So whether the pollution is visible more, it is in the Delhi. But this doesn't mean that coastal states or the cities are not facing the crisis of pollution. What I am trying to highlight here, that due to the effect of land bridge and sea bridge, the effect of pollution becomes less visible. But due to increase in the automobile sector in the coastal cities, the effect of pollution is also getting tense in these cities as well. That means there is a no issue to tell that whether it is the cities of the northern Indian plain or whether it is the coastal cities, both are facing the crisis of air pollution. Okay, and for the northern Indian plain, what are the contributory factors to the pollution? Number one, the stubble burning, because this is the transitionary period where the harvesting of the kharif crops done and the land are cleared for the rabi crops. Okay, rabi crops is your winter crops, and that's why the stubble burning is done by the farmers and they create the pollutants. And because the winter condition, the air pollutants do not like distribute, and they concentrate around a given region, and that's why Delhi becomes the pollutants gas chamber. Okay, so this crisis is because of the climatic factor, the infrastructural crisis, and the transportation sector and the farming sector. So you can combine all in that way. Okay, and when we talk about various infrastructure which is put forwarded in the urban cities, like we have the construction of roadway, okay, the widening of the roadway, and various construction activities are going on. So these construction activities do create dust, okay, do generate the air pollutants, particulate matter, and because of that the air pollution becomes much more intense. Okay, and along with you can see the rapid expansion of real estate sector, the sector of buildings. Okay, so these all contributes to the air pollution, and you can call it as gray infrastructure. These infrastructure do contribute in the air pollution. And what we are seeing that there is a construction of road, and there is also construction of pedestrians so that they can walk freely. But when we talk about the footpath are occupied by the street vendors. They are occupied by whom? The cars, the motorbikes that are parked illegally here. Okay, so this is also a bigger factor that do contributing to our air pollution. Okay, and when we talk about the share of different sectors in the air pollution, okay, so about 60% are contributed by the motor vehicle, because when we talk about motor vehicle, they are run by mostly the fossil fuel, and the fossil fuel do carry the particulate matter. And when we talk about urban cities, so there are much more motorbikes, the cars, specifically the private one running on the road, and the pollution created by all of these. Okay, and they contribute about 60% of urban pollution. Okay, hence we need to have a shift in our development strategy of urban development. Okay, there is a need for a paradigm shift, and we should move towards sustainable and ecological urbanization. Okay, so that we can handle the motorized transport, we can handle the real estate development. Okay, otherwise the crisis of pollution will be existing. Okay, and when we talk about the case of North India, we have already highlighted that why North India is facing much more crisis. First of all, your burning of the paddy straw. Okay, and the most contributing factor is your automobile market, because we have shared you in the data that they are contributing 60%, and in the coming time they will be rising in terms of valuation. Like you can see that the automobile market by 2027 will be reaching to 160 billion dollar. That means the impact is much more in the coming times, so we need to regulate that. And also the construction activities, that contributes to roughly 10% of the air pollution in the national capital region. Okay, so that means the biggest share is of the automobile market, and that's why we need to take the step. But when we talk about the steps taken, so there is less focus on the steps, but there is more focus on the debates and discussion. What we need, that we need to take a step, monitor and control the construction activity, and we need to devise a standard operating procedures. Okay, and another suggestion is your public transport, because public transport carries more people in the same vehicle. Okay, remember that 10% carrying their 10 private vehicle and one public transport carrying 10%, where the emission will be less, definitely the public transport. Okay, so that's why the concept of metro, it is also a public transport, the bus. Okay, so these transport carries more people in the same vehicle, that means less contribution to the air pollution. So one of the important scenario that needs to be activated, like focusing on the public transport. And for our urban cities, about 10 lakh bus would need to cater the demands of the urban mobility. And also we could emulate the Jawaharlal Nehru urban renewable mission along making it accessible and affordable. Okay, and one important suggestion which is very much innovative, you can also write like congestion tax should be levied. And why congestion tax? So that the private vehicles which is much more visible in the road should be restricted, okay, via this tax. And let's say the extra income comes from this tax can be utilized to transit towards the electric vehicles, the hydrogen based vehicles, all of that. Okay, and you can experiment with other systems like odd even scheme. Okay, and for this, one important thing that needs to be understood, that the city leaders needs to be active. Okay, because they are like a role model. What they does, they impact the people. Okay, the behavior. So city leaders should become the role model for creating awareness among the people. And we have another like transitioning to the green vehicles. Okay, or applying the hydrogen based vehicles concept here. Okay, so these are the things. And what are the initiatives currently which has been done to curb the pollution of Delhi, like Delhi's graded response action plan or the GRAP? Okay, these are a set of anti-air pollution measures and must be adopted in other Indian cities. And we have zero acceptance of industrial pollution, and real-time monitoring is also needed. So when we talk about zero acceptance of industrial pollution, that means the surrounding city, when they are surrounded by the industry, so the industry also release much more pollutants, and this affects the environment of the city. So there is needed zero acceptance of industrial pollution. And urban commons like pond, water bodies, urban forests, parks, playgrounds, that needs to be protected, nurtured, and expanded. Okay, and also there is a need to have a strengthening the governance system, because every initiative program implementation will work if there is strengthening the governance. If we uh, like uh, like make the governance system more effective. Okay, and for that there is a need to have a people's empowerment. Okay, and also pollution guides and standard operating procedure for various departments should be created, and people should also support this. And there is one innovative idea which has been provided, like on every week there should be no car day, where no private car should run. Okay, so that is an innovative idea. And did we have implemented these type of things? Remember during COVID-19, we do had restricted the vehicle movement. Okay, so that the transmission of the virus should not happen. So we have set an example in the past, and we can set an example in the present as well. Okay, so there is a important suggestion here. And who is impacted from these issue? The vulnerable and the marginalized sections. Okay, because they contribute less, although, but they are affected more because of the higher exposure to this air pollution, okay, and the damage to their health and ultimately affects their livelihood. So we have discussed the first article. Now we are shifting to the second article, and the second article is also related to the Delhi's air pollution. And here there is a talk about the more power to be given to the Commission for Air Quality Management. Okay, and when we talk about this commission, it is basically a statutory body. Okay, initially it was created by an ordinance. Okay, and ordinance are passed by the president. Under which article? Please tell me in the comment box. And what is the task of this body? The task of this body is to monitor the air pollution in the Delhi and NCR region, okay, and to suggest recommendations and also to implement the graded response action plan. And that's why you are seeing that in Delhi, the graded response action plan stage 4 is being implemented, which is the last stage of the GRAP because of the huge pollution crisis in Delhi. Okay, but the power is limited. This body needs to be given much more power so that they can decide independently on other measures to tackle the air pollution. Okay, and that should be independent in nature. Okay, because we are seeing the issue of political debates. Okay, issue of blame game, politicization of pollution, but no solution. Okay, so we have already talked to you about the basics of CAQM. CAQM stands for the Commission for Air Quality Management, a statutory body, and remember that it replaces the Environment Pollution Prevention and Control Authority. So we have discussed the second article as well. Now we are shifting to the third article, and third article is related to GS paper 2, and it is related to the incident of October 26 when the Qatar judiciary declared death sentence to our 8 former Navy officers. Okay, and the decision was surprising to the Indian government, the Indian families. Okay, and why surprising? Because the charges which was framed against these was not much more in the public, and the evidence is also not being shared with the Indian government. Okay, so there are concerns about this, but remember that this type of issue may disturb the relations between India and Qatar, although both these countries remained a good friend. Okay, and is also a good friend in terms of we have a diaspora of about 8 lakh Indians that are contributing to the Qatar's economy, Qatar society. Okay, and these type of incidents can affect the good relationship. Okay, and we have to dig into the background, like understanding the company and what is was the incidents that happened. All of that we need to understand, so we will understand one by one. But remember that this was a deeply shocked incident as highlighted by the Indian government, the foreign external ministry. Okay, and why? Because this was an unexpected outcome. No one was thinking that this type of punishment will be delivered, and there is a opacity, non-transparency of the charges. Okay, and there is a complete secrecy, and also the judgment copy was delayed in sharing with the Indian authority. So these all are the issue going on. And when we talk about the company, okay, because the company on whom these personnels were engaged were trying to provide training to the Qatar naval forces since 2009, and it is an Omani company. The name of the company is Dehra Global Technology. Okay, so the aim of these was to provide training to the naval force of Qatar. Okay, training, and When we talk about the current scenario of the company, the website of the company is not working. Okay, so there is a issue that is going on. But when we talk about India Qatar relation, so the relation has been cordial in nature. Okay, and for example, for the training of the naval officers of the Qatar, the what we have talked, the sailors and junior officers of the Qatar. Initially, the Qatar government was initiated towards India between the period of 2006 and 2008. Okay, to provide training for their sailors and junior officers. So that also indicated deep India Qatar bilateral defense cooperation and foreign policy. However, after 2008, the Indian government moved apart in providing training. That's why the Qatar authority tried to engage the private enterprises or the private participants in providing the training, and for that they consulted Pakistan, the Bahrain. Okay, and here the officer which has been framed under the charge that time, Commander Purenedu Tewari, created a successful enterprise in Singapore. Okay, and Commander Tewari and his team were engaged in junior level training to these officers. Okay, but the charges is about espionage. Okay, and related to the submarine project. So these charges are baseless. Okay, so that is the point. And also, this personality was given the Pravasi Bharati Samman Award, okay, and who gave him Ramnath Kovind in January 2019, okay, for enhancing the India's image abroad. So that means these personality were boosting the relations between India and Qatar, and also their families were living in Qatar. So there is a very less chance that these people will be involved in these type of incident. Okay, and about 8 lakh Indian diaspora do lives in the Qatar. Okay, so this is very little chance to have a engagement in this issue. Okay, and what are the remedies available? As we have already talked, like the court of appeal, and there is another court like court of cassation. So if the court of appeal gives the judgment in India's favor, that will be well and good, but if not, then we could move to court of cassation. Okay, and there are other remedies at the international level, so we will approach that. So India's legal assistance is also much more visible in these cases. Okay, and that is being done by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And this type of incident do have an impact on our diplomatic ties. And when we talk about India Qatar relations, so both these countries have a good friendly relations, and there is an existing bilateral agreement to extradite convicted citizens. But in this agreement, there is a exception, like Article 4 of the agreement excludes the death penalty. Okay, so that's why there is a need to have a proper follow up of the agreements. Okay, and other approach should be there is a approach of pardoning power of the authority of Qatar. Okay, and here we can appeal to the emirs. Okay, to consider a complete and unconditional pardon. And remember that unprecedented situation call for unprecedented leadership. So here, both the leaders, whether it is from India or whether it is from the Qatar, they have to showcase their big heart. Okay, so that is the point. And now we are coming to the third article, and the third article is related to PM Awas Yojana. Okay, and why this is in news, I have already talked to you in the context that the Andhra Pradesh government was trying to rename the PM Awas Yojana by including the name of their political party. Okay, but This caused special between the center and the state, because the central government also gives funding to this scheme and also the state government gives funding. And here, renaming of this scheme lead to the delivery of 4,000 crore fund that was to come to the state from the center, put it into the hold. Okay, and this fund was a part of a special assistance given to the Andhra Pradesh because of the bifurcation of Andhra Pradesh with Telangana, plus the a scheme amount. Okay, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana rural amount is also included in this. Okay, so we will be discussing about the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. And when we talk about Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, it was launched in 2016, so that the requirement of housing to the poorer people and the vulnerable section to be given free of cost by 2022, but this target was not achieved, so it has been extended for further time. Okay, so that is the point. And there are some features like the house built under the PM Awas Yojana Gramin scheme are low cost and disaster resilient, and minimum size of the house will be about 25 meter square. Okay, and the funding is from the central government and the state government both. And when we talk about the funding pattern, so 60:40 with respect to the like a state will contribute 40% of the fund and the center will contribute 60% of the fund. Okay, and identification of beneficiary should be from the socio-economic caste census along with the due verification by Gram Sabha. And when we talk about financial assistance, so each beneficiary is given 100% grant of about 1.2 lakh in the areas of plains. Okay, where difficulty in creating infrastructure of the house is not much more. But when we talk about hilly areas, there is a difficulty in creation of the infrastructure. Okay, like they need to bring the construction materials to the hilly areas, so that requires much more cost, and that's why the amount is little bit extra, about 1.3 lakh crore. Okay, so that is the point. And tell me, which are included in the 90:10 funding pattern. 90% means it will be given by the center, 10 will be given by the state. Okay, a state or the UT. So tell me which a state or UT comes under the 90% funding contribution by the center. And there is also convergence of the other scheme as well. And like in this scheme, housing is being built, but also there is a need of toilet, so the toilet funding will be given also about 12,000 under the Swachh Bharat mission. Okay, that aims for freeing the open defecation from India. Okay, so there are convergence of other schemes as well. So hope you understood. And now we are shifting to the solution of the prelims question. So the solution is the DPSP. Okay, so under the Indian Constitution, the concentration of wealth violates the DPSP, and DPSP is basically the directives given by the constitution to the state, that means to the government, to the authority. Okay, that what you need to do for creating a welfare society, and welfare society is based on the socialist principle. Okay, because the term welfare concept will be moving forward specifically in the country where socialist principle is followed. And when we talk about India, we do have socialist principle and we do have capitalist principle to followed. Okay, initially when India became independent, we followed the socialist principle. That's why many of the benefits and services were given from the government side. But after 1990, we have mostly introduced the private sector much more. Okay, and via LPG reforms. Okay, so that is the point. And why the right answer is DPSP? Because directly in DPSP you can see that there is a direct mentioning under Article 39, prevention of concentration of wealth and means of production. Okay, and when we talk about the DPSP, Part 4 of the Constitution of India contains DPSP, and It extends from Article 36 to Article 51, and the concept of DPSP were taken from which constitution? Were inspired from the Constitution of Ireland. Okay, and there is the principle which can be categorized into Gandhian principles, the socialist principle, the liberal principles. Okay, but the constitution does not classify based on this, but they gives the list of the DPSP to be followed. Okay, and we have Article 38, 39. Tell me the article under DPSP which promotes uniform civil code. Okay, so these are the questions that needs to be answered and was also asked in the UPSC prelims. Okay, so DPSP is a very important topic for the prelims. Hope you understood, and we will meet again for the next lecture series. Thank you, friend. Thank you very much.